Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something that sounds pretty straightforward, maybe even a bit obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But our source material treats it like a genuine superpower. We're talking about keen observation.
Yeah, the art of really seeing, not just looking,
Yeah.
picking up on those subtle cues, the details, the patterns that honestly most of us just miss day to day.
And the source for this dive is, well, it's quite lovely, actually. It comes from this really insightful, very personal chat between a father, Manish, and his daughter, Mansi, who's 25.
Right. He's looking back on his own life, his career, and sharing how deliberately practicing observation gave him, an edge.
So our mission here is to unpack what makes this skill so powerful. We'll pull specific examples from that conversation, looking at how this way of seeing things, seeing the world, seeing yourself, can really impact your success.
Yeah, in your job, in business, even just in becoming sort of the person you aspire to be.
Okay, let's get into it. First off, what do we even mean by observation in this context? Because, like Manish points out, it's not just noticing that the sky is blue.
Exactly. It's much more active than that. It's about seeing what others miss, looking for the connections, the details that aren't shouting for attention.
And he gives some great examples of how this works in a career.
Yeah.
Like early on, he figured out his boss really valued people who could spot trouble before it happened.
Proactive, yeah.
So he didn't just do his tasks. He started watching the team,
Mhm.
how they worked together, what slowed them down, what actually got them excited or motivated.
That's key. He wasn't just looking at the surface level problems. He was observing the underlying dynamics. The system, really. And by seeing those little friction points or maybe shifts in energy, he could figure out why things felt off. And then he could suggest these small, targeted changes.
Like tweaking how they ran meetings.
Yeah, exactly. Things that maybe didn't seem huge, but because they addressed those observed sticking points, they had a real impact.
And that's the career superpower kicking in, right?
Right.
It got him noticed, not just for being good at his job description, but for making the whole team function better.
It's that reading the room skill, picking up on unspoken stuff, anticipating problems. It just makes you seem, well, more valuable. You stand out.
Okay, so that's career. But then Manish pivots to business, and especially sales. He basically said...
Sales is all about observation. Pretty direct.
Yeah. And he tells this story, right? Meeting a client. He's not just there to deliver the pitch. He's, like, scanning everything.
Constantly observing. Body language, tone of voice, what topics make them lean in, what makes them hesitate slightly.
And the killer detail was the client kept glancing at his watch. Just a quick look, maybe.
Easy to ignore or rationalize.
But he didn't ignore it. He read it instantly. This person's short on time.
Bingo. And with that one observation, he changes his whole approach.
Throws out the long pitch, right?
Yep. Cuts right to the chase. Focuses only on what he sensed were the client's absolute core needs, based on everything he'd observed up to that point.
And because he reacted to that tiny cue, the watch glance, he nails it. Closes the deal.
It's such a great example because it shows observation lets you adapt in real time. You're responding to the actual person, not just your script.
You're reading their needs, maybe even before they fully articulated them.
Exactly. Are they price sensitive? Do they care more about quality, speed? Are they just testing you? You pick up these clues.
And you can zoom out from sales too, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs who are really observant, they see market shifts or weird customer behavior way before anyone else.
They're ahead of the curve because they're paying closer attention to the present. It makes total sense.
Okay, so career, business. But then the conversation shifts, which I found fascinating, to personal growth. How observation helps you become a better version of yourself.
Yeah, and Manish frames it as working both ways, outward and inward, which is a really useful distinction.
Let's unpack that. So outward observation,
Yeah.
that's about watching other people's reactions to you.
Right. Like when you're talking, are people engaged, leaning forward, or are they subtly checking out, eyes glazing over?
Okay, so that's like direct feedback on how you're coming across.
Exactly. It tells you, am I connecting here or do I need to shift my approach? It's self-awareness via external cues.
And it's also about watching people you admire, isn't it? Role models.
Yes. Observing how they handle things. How does that person navigate a tricky conversation with such grace?
Yeah.
Or how do they build rapport so easily?
You're not trying to copy them exactly.
No, not mimicry. But by watching how they do it, their posture, their word choice, their timing, you can learn about confidence or empathy or whatever skill they demonstrate well. You see it in action.
Okay, that's outward. But the inward observation,
Huh.
That sounds even more challenging, maybe, looking at yourself.
It can be, yeah. But it's incredibly powerful. Manish shared a really honest example about himself. He noticed that when conversations got tough, people around him would actually, like, physically tense up.
Wow. Okay.
He saw that external reaction, and it acted like a mirror. It made him realize, hang on, maybe my energy, my impatience in these moments is causing that reaction.
So their tension reflected his
Yeah.
own tension.
Precisely. And that specific observation was the catalyst. It showed him exactly what he needed to work on staying calmer, more centered when things got difficult.
And presumably, as he worked on that internally, the external reactions changed too.
That's the loop. Observe the outside to understand the inside. Work on the inside to change the outside. It's profound, really.
It really is. So, okay, the big question then for Mansi in the conversation, and definitely for anyone listening, how do you actually get better at this? How do you develop this observation muscle?
Yeah, it sounds great in theory, but what's the practical advice?
And Manish's advice was refreshingly simple. Basically, start small.
Right. No need to become Sherlock Holmes overnight.
Just be more present. Be more curious about what's actually happening around you, instead of being lost in your own head during a meeting or conversation.
Try to really be there. Notice things. What's the vibe? What are people's nonverbal cues saying?
He suggested using everyday moments as like little training grounds.
Mini exercises, yeah. Like, next time you're in a meeting, don't just listen to the words. Watch people's faces. Who seems engaged? Who looks bored or confused? Who's subtly agreeing or disagreeing?
Or even just people watching at a coffee shop. How does the barista handle that tricky customer? What makes the interaction smooth or awkward?
And a big one he mentioned, practice listening more than talking.
Yes.
When you're genuinely focused on listening, you naturally start observing more, the tone, the pauses, the emotions behind the words.
And it's not just negative cues, right? Also notice the positive stuff.
Definitely. What makes your friend's face light up? What comment makes your boss crack a genuine smile? Observing positive reactions is just as insightful.
And the reassurance was important too. It's not about staring or being weirdly intense.
No, not at all. It's just about cultivating a kind of gentle, active awareness, being curious.
Like a muscle, as you said. The more you practice paying attention.
The stronger that observational skill gets, and the
Yeah.
benefits ripple out. It builds empathy because you start understanding people on a deeper level.
Sharpens your instincts.
Makes you more confident because you feel more attuned to what's actually going on in any situation.
And it applies everywhere. He even mentioned, like, noticing his daughter seemed stressed, not from anything she said, just her vibe.
And making her favorite chai. A small thing, but born from observation, that connection.
So wrapping this up, drawing from that father-daughter chat, keen observation isn't passive. It's this really active skill.
Absolutely. It gives you an edge in your career, helping you anticipate and solve problems in business, especially sales, making you more intuitive.
And for your own growth, giving you that mirror for self-awareness. Plus, it deepens relationships.
It's fundamental, really. And the good news is it's accessible to everyone. It's not some mystical talent.
It just takes intention, practice.
So here's something to think about. If just paying a bit more focused attention can unlock so much hidden information about people, about situations, about yourself, what might you discover today just by looking a little closer at something familiar? What's waiting there to be observed?